Hello and welcome to Memorial Cooking Innovations. I'm Leanne Anderson, Certified Diabetes Educator and Registered Dietitian Nutritionist with CHI St. Luke's Health Memorial and the Polk Education Center. Today we have as a returning guest, Courtney High. She's been our dietetic intern from Stephen F. Austin University, and she's finishing up her time with us. And so we've worked on a couple recipes together we're going to prepare for y'all today. Courtney, welcome again.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here again.
Good, yes. So we've been talking and kind of been anxious for the arrival of fall. The days are getting shorter, but here in Texas, we never know if it's going to be 100 degrees, or maybe we'll get lucky and it'll be 60, or we might even have a hurricane thrown in. But this time of year, we always kind of get hungry for some of those comfort foods like soups. And so what are we going to prepare today that will kind of roll us into fall?
Today we're going to do a spicy corn and shrimp chowder.
Yum. So it's going to use some of the summer ingredients that we still have access to, but get us kind of that comforting soup type of dish. So first we are going to marinate our shrimp.
Yes.
And we got the pre-cooked shrimp. It's already peeled and deveined. It still has the tails on, so just to take the tails off, if you just kind of squeeze the shrimp and pull the tail at the same time, you can easily remove those. So we did most of these ahead of time. Today, you're also going to see us do a lot of the mise en place type of cooking, where we've prepped and cut up a lot of our things beforehand, just for ease of putting this dish together. So for the marinade, we're going to add, we mixed about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil with some cayenne pepper, salt and pepper, and some garlic powder, about 1/2 teaspoon of each. And we're going to pour that over the shrimp and kind of mix that all together.
Sorry,
it kind of settled at the bottom, but all the seasonings, yeah. And we're going to stir that together and just set it aside and let that marinate and soak up all that good flavor.
Oh yeah.
So tell us, why are shrimp a good healthy ingredient?
So I think shrimp a lot of times get perceived as unhealthy because they do have some cholesterol in them. But recent scientific evidence has found that the cholesterol that you eat through food doesn't have quite as much of an impact on your cholesterol levels as they once thought. It's more so your saturated and trans fats.
Okay.
So that clears up that issue, but they're low in calorie and they're high in protein, almost as much as chicken breast. And then they also have some great vitamins and minerals in them. They have selenium, which is a great antioxidant and also helps with your thyroid function. And then they also have vitamin B12, which a lot of us are deficient in, as well as copper and iodine. So a great little amount of nutrients packed in there. So
right, and so we're going to let that marinate while we prepare the rest of the soup, so it doesn't have to marinate for a long period of time. Just kind of let it marinate in those juices while we do the rest of the dish. So the other thing we're going to prepare is the corn, one of the key ingredients. We're using fresh corn today, but if you're making this, in the middle of winter, you may not have access to that, so frozen corn will work just as well. We're going to use 5 ears of fresh corn, which would be about 3 cups of frozen. If you're buying fresh, you want to select it where most of the kernels are covered. You can feel how the kernels are kind of firm. You can cheat in the store and maybe peel back a little bit and make sure that the kernels are plump and not dried out. And then to shuck it, you just pull in a couple strokes. You don't have to do it one piece at a time. Break that end off and then just peel the silk off and wash it under running water. So it's pretty easy.
Nicely done.
Thank you. I've had years of experience growing up in Nebraska, the Cornhusker State. And growing up, we used to have to shuck corn like a whole pickup load full. So, but this is a gadget that we found that's really handy for cutting corn off the cob. If you've ever tried to do it with a knife, it can be kind of hard. Just has a little rounded blade. Hold your corn and just apply light pressure, and it cuts that corn really quickly. It's also much safer than a knife.
See that.
With a knife, you can possibly slip and cut yourself.
And where did you find this gadget?
I found it at one of the kitchen and bath stores.
Oh, all right.
I've seen them in some of your big box stores, anywhere where they sell kitchen utensils. And then once you get the kernels off, if you kind of scrape the cob, you can see there's kind of some creamy, almost a milk-like. That's where the sweetness of the corn adds that flavor.
That'll make the soup nice and delicious.
Yes, I'm definitely going to be using more fresh corn now that I have this little gadget to cut it off. And we're going to add the liquid, that white kind of corn milk, we'll call it, to the soup. It's going to give us some added creaminess. So Courtney, if you just pour that into our bowl of corn, and we're going to let that, just set that to the side until we're ready to add it to our soup.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to use kind of a play on Cajun cooking with this recipe, and start with the holy trinity of celery, onions, and bell pepper. We're using red bell pepper. You could also use green pepper if you like that better than the red, or even some yellow or orange peppers. And then we have about a cup of chopped pepper and a little over a cup of chopped onion. It's about 1 medium white onion, and then also about a cup of celery, about 2 stalks worth of celery without the leaves. And then we're also adding some chopped carrot along with that. And we're just going to kind of shake that around in the pan, let it start sauteing, and add a little bit of fresh garlic.
Yes, fresh garlic adds some nice flavor in there.
I don't think we've ever made a recipe on the show without garlic. One of my favorite ingredients. Okay, so we're going to let this saute for about 5 minutes, and then we'll be ready to add some of the liquid in the corn and bring it all together. Okay, so this has been sauteing and simmering for about 5 minutes. We added the lid just to kind of help keep some of that moisture in. And look at that color, that looks really good.
Smells delicious.
And the onions are just kind of starting to turn clear and the vegetables soft. So next we're going to add the broth. And we've got 3 cups of unsalted vegetable broth. You could also probably use chicken broth, correct?
Yeah, chicken broth would work just as well.
And the thing that we've discovered in working with patients and doing the cooking shows is you really have to read the labels closely if you're trying to watch sodium. There's lots of different unsalted and reduced sodium and no salt added broths. This particular one has 200 milligrams or so of sodium per cup, whereas I've used other unsalted broths that maybe had only 50. Regular broth usually comes in at about 700 milligrams per cup. So you really do save by using one of those broths, and really the flavor, you can't tell the difference, in my opinion anyway. So we're going to add that, and then we're going to add that fresh corn that we just cut along with the juices. Just going to add some creaminess to that.
That looks delicious.
And then our spices to spice this up, about a ½ a teaspoon each of salt, pepper, and 1½ teaspoons of smoked paprika. Now that's a spice that neither one of us had tried before, and we have found that it really adds almost a chipotle pepper type of flavor. It's much different type of spice than regular paprika that you sprinkle on deviled eggs and that sort of thing.
And it is labeled, I mean, differently. It is labeled as smoked paprika in the store. So when you go to buy it, make sure it says smoked.
So we've come together and sauteed those vegetables, added the corn and the broth. We're just going to let this come to a boil and cook for about 5 minutes and simmer. In the meantime, you want to keep stirring that shrimp to kind of make sure that it gets coated in the marinade. Since we're not marinating it for a long period of time, it's good to kind of keep turning that and getting it coated with the marinade.
Yeah, sometimes that oil kind of settles on the bottom, so just to give all the shrimp a fair chance.
Right.
Stir it up. All right.
Okay, so we just need to wait to go to our next addition of ingredients.
Yeah.
So how is the soup coming along?
It's starting to simmer now. We've got a nice
It smells
little...
delicious.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to thicken the soup, which is a little different than the traditional method of maybe making a roux or using some fat and flour. So we're going to take 2 tablespoons of cornmeal and add a couple tablespoons or a little bit more, a little bit at a time, just to form kind of a thinner type of paste that we'll put back in the soup to thicken it.
Yeah. So mixing the liquid, a little bit of the liquid and the cornmeal separately before adding it to the soup allows those cornmeal molecules to stay separated so that they don't clump up when you add them to the soup.
Because if you just added the cornmeal to the soup on its own, you would probably get a big clump of cornmeal in the middle of the soup rather than thinning it out.
All right.
That looks good.
I think so. I'm going to add this in now.
It's almost the texture of oatmeal, the consistency of oatmeal or pudding.
Okay, now let's stir that in.
Looks, yeah, it mixed right in, so we got the right consistency on that. So we're going to let this simmer for another 10 minutes or so until it's thick, and we'll be ready to put the finishing touches. All right, so we've been letting this simmer and stirred occasionally. It's starting to get thick. Maybe give it another stir and see how it looks. You know, it's not going to be super thick, but you can tell that the liquid has thickened up just a little bit, almost like a nectar type thickness. And so next we're going to add the creamy part, and that will be a cup of whole milk. And why are we using whole milk?
So since we're only using a cup, it's all right to use whole milk because this serving actually makes six servings. And the whole milk is going to add a nice creaminess to the soup.
Okay, and we're going to add it gradually so that it doesn't separate from the soup. That looks really yummy. Very colorful and actually has a lot of those fall colors.
Yeah, it does.
This would be good for maybe a night you wanted to watch college football, or the Major League World Series will be coming up, so it'll be maybe something you could have for a game watching party.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to let that heat through. Next we're going to add the shrimp, or get the shrimp ready to add to the soup. We've been marinating the shrimp since we began the recipe. We've got about a tablespoon of canola oil heating in the pan, and we're just going to saute these shrimp for a couple minutes. These are already cooked, as we mentioned earlier. If we were using fresh shrimp, we'd probably cook them a little longer than 2 minutes, but it's really easy to overcook shrimp, so it's better to do it quickly and not let it sit too long before you take it off the heat. And your fish, you know, there are shrimp, when they're done, usually they're pink. If they still have any translucent or kind of not more of a tan color, usually they're not quite ready. So we're going to saute those for a couple minutes and we'll be ready to serve. Well, since the soup that we made comes in at a little under 400 calories a serving, we decided we were going to add dessert today. And some recipes that I've looked at have been called the chia seed pudding, and so Courtney has worked to develop this recipe over the last few days, and we really had to kind of tweak and work with it to get it right. The one thing you want to do is make this the night before or earlier in the day when you plan to serve it, because it takes a while for the chia seeds to thicken into a pudding.
Yes. It comes together pretty quickly, but those chia seeds take a while to form the gel inside the liquid as they soak up the liquid.
Okay, so we're going to use 2 cups of almond milk. We use the unsweetened almond milk. What are some of the benefits of almond milk?
So almond milk is going to be lower in calorie than your regular milk. It also does not have lactose, which is the natural sugar in milk, so it's not going to count towards your carbohydrates.
Okay.
So that's important if you're watching your carbohydrates or if you're diabetic.
Right. Or even if you're lactose intolerant, this might be a milk that would be appropriate as well. And then we're going to add a cup of non-fat plain yogurt.
Yes, we're doing Greek yogurt here because the Greek yogurt's going to add a little bit of extra protein. And then by doing unsweetened, just plain yogurt, we are able to better control how much sugar is in the pudding, and then it also gives it a nice tang.
Right, especially when we add some of the other ingredients.
Yes.
And so we also are going to add the juice and the zest of the lemon. Thank you. This is actually a cheese grater. We tried several different methods of grating the lemon rind to get the zest, and just a regular kind of a microplane type cheese grater worked the best versus an official zesting tool. You could also use a vegetable peeler to peel off some of this as well. And the lemon zest adds a really tart flavor with that, along with the lemon juice.
So we're going to add in the zest.
Okay.
And then we're also going to add in the juice of the lemon.
And this is a nice little handy juicer. You can always just squeeze with your hands, but usually this helps filter out the lemon seeds and works just a little bit more quickly.
Yeah, so we had juiced the lemon ahead of time since we're practicing mise en place with our cooking today. So we're just going to go ahead and add in the lemon juice.
And then
put the lid back on.
We've got vanilla and honey that we're going to add next. So 4 teaspoons of vanilla extract. It's going to give it a nice rich flavor as well. And then the honey, you could also substitute maple syrup for the honey.
Yeah.
Or if you're really watching your sugar intake, you might even try Splenda in this recipe. We did not try that this time, but that would be another option if you didn't want quite as much honey.
The good thing about the honey is it's a natural sweetener, and it actually has a lot of good qualities opposed to just a regular sugar.
Right.
If you get your local honey, it can actually help with your allergies, so that's always
it's a big
good.
thing here in Texas this time of year with ragweed and all of those types of things. And so we whisk all of this together until it's smooth. I can smell that vanilla. I always love vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
So chia seeds are what we're going to add next. What are some of the health benefits of those?
Chia seeds are interesting. They actually were used by the Aztec warriors for high energy and endurance when they were preparing for battle.
Okay.
The word chia actually means strength, which is really interesting. But aside from that, they add a great amount of fiber and protein and those important omega-3 fatty acids that a lot of us don't get enough of.
Right. Those are the heart-healthy fats. You find them also in your fatty fish like salmon or tuna or sardines, walnuts and canola oil. But this is just a different way to get those omega-3s along with some fiber, correct?
Oh yeah. And then the seeds also have a good amount of calcium, which if you're not drinking, if you're dairy-free, that's a good way to get some more calcium in your diet, as well as a lot of other good vitamins and minerals and antioxidants.
Okay. And the next ingredient is 2 cups of blueberries. We're using frozen. By September, usually the fresh blueberries are a little bit out of season, but during the summer when you've got access to the fresh, those will work just as well.
Yes. Because we're going to be letting this sit, the frozen blueberries work just, they sit and kind of thaw in the pudding and kind of help it to gel a little bit and set. Oh, we need 1 more cup.
And with the blueberries, those have a ton of antioxidants as well. We've talked about berries on the show before. Blueberries also add some fiber. So even though this is dessert, this is actually a pretty healthy option to cure that sweet tooth while also getting some good nutrition. And so after this is combined, you just want to put a cover on it, plastic wrap, or if you have a lid, and stick it in the fridge and wait till it's thick, and we'll be serving up some of that here shortly. Well, we've put together a really awesome meal, I think.
Yes, I think so too.
Okay, so we've made the spicy corn chowder with shrimp, and we did that by using fresh corn, some no salt added vegetable broth. We sauteed that holy trinity of Cajun veggies, the peppers and onions and celery, added a little carrot, and marinated the shrimp and sauteed those. Added some cornmeal and whole milk to kind of give it that creamy thickness on the soup. And so we're ready to serve that up.
All right.
And
one more scoop in there.
And then we're going to top it with some of the shrimp. Looks really good. And then what we would probably serve with this, or at least what I would, be a nice green salad with maybe a little bit of bread to soak up some of that soup, and garnish it. I would add a little cheese or some avocado, or garnish it with some cilantro.
Oh, that would be delicious. Yeah,
I think so too. And then to finish it off, since we saved a few calories, we made the blueberry chia pudding, which is full of antioxidants and those omega-3 fatty acids. So even though it's a sweet treat, you're also getting some good nutrients too. So Courtney, thanks again for helping us with today's show, and best of luck to you in your future endeavors as a dietitian.
Thank you.
And also for joining us once again as we try to change the world one bite at a time.